Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to talk about India Myanmar relationship. We are going to continue with it. Okay. We have already talked about the importance of Myanmar for India. We have talked about areas of cooperation which are there between the two countries. We have talked about a few things from the prelims perspective as well, be it the Kaladan multi-modal project or IMT trilateral highway. Okay, we have talked about it. So today we are going to talk about the free movement regime. This is something which is there in the current affairs and very important, especially from the perspective of international relations. This is very important from the current affairs. Okay, this was there in news in the month of February this year. Okay, so this is very important. Next, we'll be talking about the areas of conflict which are there between the two countries. Be it areas of conflict may, like the first one is China and Myanmar, and the second one we'll be talking about is the Rohingya issue, which is there between the two countries. So this is what which we are going to talk about today. Okay, so beginning with the free movement regime. What is this free movement regime? FMR, it's basically what I have written the short form of free movement regime. So this free movement regime came into existence in 2018 as a part of India's Act East policy. Okay, so what was it exactly? It allows cross-border movement up to 16 kilometers without a visa. Like it was a Indian people can move to Myanmar 16 kilometers from the border without the use of visa, and vice versa. Like Myanmar people can also come to India 16 kilometers without any visa. This agreement was brought to facilitate local border trade, improve access to education and healthcare for the border residents, and strengthen the diplomatic ties. Okay, and under this agreement, individuals were allowed to up to 2 weeks in neighboring country by getting a 1 year border pass. So this was about the free movement regime, 16 kilometers without any visa. Okay, so since this kind of thing was there, now the question comes, why was it conceptualized? Why was this free movement regime between India and Myanmar? Why it was there? Okay, so number one, the border was demarcated by Britishers in the year of 1826 without seeking the opinion of the people living in the region. One thing, people divide this thing, division of the border divided the people of same ethnicity and the culture into two nations without their consent. People have strong ethnic and familial ties across the border. Example can be Mizo, Kuki and Chins, who are collective known as Zo people. They actually share common ancestry and robust ethnic ties across the border. Then is in Manipur's Morhe region, there are some villages in which homes are there in Myanmar. So basically thing is a particular village is there, some homes are there in Myanmar. This is how the border has actually been divided. Okay. FMR also provide impetus to the local trade and business. So this is about the ethnic ties or familial ties from people to people aspect. It is there, and the another aspect of this free movement regime, like why this regime was there, was the local trade and business. There has been a long history of trans-border commerce through customs and border hubs. Okay, so this is economic reason for the conceptualization of this concept of free movement regime. Okay, so this was there. Now, but the news is that this free movement regime has been scrapped. Okay, so what are the reasons that India has scrapped this free movement regime? The reason which has been given by the government, by the Home Ministry for the scrapping of the free movement regime are, the first one is the internal security. See, this free movement regime is impacting the internal security of the country, and the things have actually worsened after the 2021 military coup which happened in Myanmar. So keeping in mind the internal security. Second reason they gave was to maintain the demographic structure of northeast states bordering Myanmar. They wanted to see when migration takes place, then it might be possible that the demographic structure of a particular region might change when migration takes place over years and years. Okay, so in order to prevent this thing, then is this thing basically illegal immigration, drugs and armed trafficking in the region. So this is also one of the reason. And in order to give its explanation is, in Manipur, the aftermath of military juntas resurgent in Myanmar in 2021 has been a notable increase in drug seizures, soaring from 3 tons in 2020, 3 tons in 2021 to over 10 tons within a year. Okay, so this is how the drug seizures have actually increased in Manipur after the military's takeover in Myanmar. Also, another example can be Assam Rifles from January to October 2023 recovered 18 weapons, contraband items worth $889,000 and drugs worth $10.96 million. Vulnerable regions identified for smuggling and infiltration spanning 500 kilometers, primarily in Arunachal, Manipur, Mizoram, amplify these concerns. So this is also one of the reason that why this regime has been scrapped. Then is anti-India separatist groups have camps and training facilities in Myanmar. They have also taken the advantage of FMR to carry out attacks in the northeastern states that share border with Myanmar. Okay, so this is also one of the reasons. So these are the various reasons that this free movement regime has been scrapped. Okay, so what next in this? There's also this thing, the government sources have cited by the media said that they also plan to equip the border with an advanced smart fencing system so that all these problems which I have talked about above there can be actually tackled with advanced smart fencing system within 4.5 years. A smart fence has already been installed at some stretches along the India Bangladesh. So this kind of fence which has been there along the India Bangladesh border, they are planning, some sources have said that this kind of fencing is going to be there on the India Myanmar border as well, so that these issues can actually be dealt with. Okay, so this is about it. So this is about the free movement regime, what it was, why it was there, why has it been scrapped. Actually, impact, when we talk about the impact it can have on the lives of people, definitely it was conceptualized, there was reason behind its conceptualization, right? Why it was implemented, there was a reason behind that. So definitely when it is going to be scrapped, it is going to impact people to people ties because of the cross border ties which are there between the two, like cross border ties which are there. It's going to impact it's going to impact the trade which actually take place between the two countries, local trade which take place. Okay, so this is how it is going to impact the people at the local level basically. So this is how we can write the impact. Okay, and what is the next plan? This is also we have talked about. Okay, so next, so now let's switch to areas of conflict which are there between the two countries, and the first and foremost country of conflict, which is the China in Myanmar. China shares direct borders with Myanmar. Two of its regions basically we can say, one is the Kachin state and the another one is Shan state. These are the two regions of China, of Myanmar, which share borders with China. Okay, so now coming to it. So sharing of border is there. Importance of Myanmar for China. The first thing is definitely going to be let's talk when we'll be talking about it. Then the first thing is Myanmar is a land border to it is basically Myanmar is called as a land bridge to the Indian Ocean because it's going to provide a kind of bridge to the Indian Ocean to China Myanmar's natural resources are another reason. Energy access from the offshore fields which are there in the Arakan region, dual pipeline from Kyokpyu to Kunming, and timber from Myanmar. So these are the various reasons, like the natural resources of Myanmar, which are also important. Then is Myanmar, definitely we have talked about the land bridge which is there to the Indian Ocean. China's investment in Myanmar, including the development of ports, naval facilities, could allow China to monitor, control sea routes to the India's energies and the trade flows. Then is to overcome the Malacca dilemma. It's important. See, it is most of the trade of China through sea route basically take place through this Malacca Strait. See, when we will be talking about this Malacca dilemma, this Malacca Strait is actually between Indonesia and the basically we can say there's this tip of basically Singapore, we can say the region of Singapore, Malaysia, which is there, and Indonesia. The region, this is the region. See, when it comes to Malaysia, this is how Malaysia is. Malaysia is there, Singapore is there, and this is the island of this is the island, this is the Sumatra island of Indonesia, and this strait which is there, this strait is basically the Malacca Strait. Okay, and the most of the trade of China takes place through this Malacca Strait. And since this Malacca dilemma is such that this strait is really thin, okay, the distance is not much, okay, so it can be a kind of choke point, just as I have talked about chicken snack dilemma in case of India because of the Siliguri corridor, which was a narrow one. In similar way, this Malacca Strait is a narrow strait, and because of it being a narrow one, it can be a kind of can be used as a kind of a choke point. Okay, so in case of any issue, then this Malacca Strait is something which will be impacted first. So China is having a kind of dilemma over here of the importance of Malacca Strait is great, but it is really narrow. So in order to overcome this Malacca dilemma, supposedly in future, in case of any war, this Malacca Strait gets kind of choked. Okay, so in that case, what can happen is China can continue its trade through Myanmar. So it can actually act as a alternative to the Malacca Strait. Okay, providing alternative to trade than the Malacca Strait. Okay, so this is about it. So this is the importance of Myanmar for China, and when it comes to China for Myanmar, the reasons can be definitely deep pockets of China. That is money which just China can provide for the development of Myanmar. The same reasons which have talked about in the other regions as well. Okay, deep pockets of China, balancing India. So these can be the reasons that China is of interest to Myanmar. Okay, now the evidence of China in Myanmar. What can be the this evidence of China in Myanmar? One is this CMEC, China Myanmar Economic Corridor. Okay, let me show you in the diagram as well. So basically, first of all, these three pillars are there: Kyokpyu Special Economic Zone, China Myanmar Border Economic Cooperation Zone, and New Yangon City. Okay, so these are the three major pillars. Kyokpyu Kunming Railway Project, which is the part of larger Pan-Asia railway network, aims to connect the port of Kyokpyu in Myanmar to Kunming and the capital city of which is Kunming, which is the capital city of Yunnan province of China. Okay, so the purpose of railway is to facilitate the transportation of goods and people between the two countries. Kyokpyu port, which is also there, which is the part of China's string of pearls policy as well. Actually, I'll be talking about the strings of pearls policy in the next class when I'll be talking about India-China relations. Okay. Then is this CMEC. This is the part of China's Belt and Road Initiative. Okay, so this is about CMEC. Then Laptadong copper mines, then Sino Myanmar oil and gas piping. So these are the various examples of the infrastructure projects which China is having in Myanmar. So these are the evidences which shows the China in Myanmar. Okay. Now this is, let me show you this in the diagram. So this Kyaukpyu, this is the Yangon, this is Mandalay, this is Kunming. Okay, so this is China Myanmar Economic Corridor. Okay, this is the planned one. Okay, so you must remember these places and from which place to which place it gets connected. So do remember it, because some of these kind of questions are asked in the prelims. Okay, so do remember. This was about it. Now, what is the impact of China? China is having an influence in Myanmar. What is the impact on India? Impact on India, the first thing when we'll be talking about the impact on India is basically China is having this policy in certain manner that China is occupying, it's making its presence felt in the Indian Ocean region. Okay, so uh, this Myanmar basically providing a kind of bridge to Indian Ocean. So definitely this is actually strengthening China's string of pearls policy through its the Kyaukpyu port, which is there, which is the part of China's string of pearls policy. This is actually helping China to have a better basically presence in the Indian Ocean region, which might impact India's security, Okay, so this might be one of the reasons. This is a kind of strengthening of China's policy of encirclement of India. Okay, so this is also one of the part of it. China's massive projects and definitely influence of this is the region which is basically India's region of influence, where China is going to have more influence in Myanmar. Okay, massive infrastructure projects give it in South Asia, give it a growing presence in the Indian Ocean region. We have talked about India needs to be concerned about China Myanmar Economic Corridor as it leads into Bay of Bengal, puts Andaman Nicobar Islands at the risk, which brings Chinese closer to the Indian coastline, just like the CPEC, which is there. China-Pakistan Economic Corridor is there, which brings China to our coastline in the Persian Gulf and Arabian Sea. This is also strengthening China's string of pearls policy. Okay, so this is what the impact on India is. Then what are the steps which India is basically taking so that it can decrease or it can balance out the impact of China? So there must be something. When we'll be using our common sense in this case, definitely we'll be coming across the answer to it. What steps India might be taking? India might be maintaining more better relationship with whosoever power is there in Myanmar. Another thing we might say, more we'll say more money for the infrastructure projects with the India or with Myanmar. Like India might want to have a better kind of more infrastructure development. India might provide more grants for the infrastructure development in Myanmar. Okay, so basically steps by India which India needs to take, or basically should focus on making more effective contribution to Myanmar's development and security. Focus on quickly completing the infrastructure projects, just like we have talked about in the last class, that infrastructure project, Kaladan multi-model project, it's been delayed from years. So India should try to basically complete these projects quickly. India needs to strengthen its collaboration with the like-minded countries like Japan, which has growing economic presence in Myanmar. Thus, India's Act East policy and Japan's free and open Indo-Pacific strategy needs to combine. So basically, these are the things which we can write over here about China in Myanmar. Okay, so this was one of the conflict and the steps which India can take to overcome it. Okay, next one is the Rohingya issue. See people, now this Rohingya issue you must have read about in the news. This has been in news. In fact, this is a kind of topic which remains in news almost. Okay, so now first of all, let me tell you who are these Rohingya. These are the ethnic minority in Myanmar. Okay, I've told you ethnic minorities. See, and they live in the Rakhine state, also known as Arakan in Myanmar, settled since 15th century. They practice Islam and speak the Bengali dialect. This is about Rohingyas. Actually, they live in Rakhine state. Where is this Rakhine state? Let me show in this diagram only. See, this is the region. Basically, this is the region of the Rakhine state, this region. is Rakhine state. Okay. I have told you in the last class as well कि जो ethnic minorities हैं वो basically frontiers पर रहती हैं. So if you have not watched the last class, I would request you people to watch it. So this is the Rakhine state of Myanmar. So this is where Rohingyas live. Okay, Rakhine, they are the ethnic minority in Myanmar. Okay, so they are the ethnic minority. Now, what is this crisis? The Rohingya people have suffered decades of violence, discrimination, and persecution in Myanmar. Rohingyas, they are not recognized as official ethnic groups. They have actually been denied citizenship since 1982. They are one of the largest stateless populations in the world. Since early 1990s, Rohingyas have fled successive waves of violence in Myanmar. Their largest and the fastest exodus began in August 2017 when violence broke out in Myanmar's Rakhine state, driving 7,42,000 people to seek refuge in the neighboring countries, and majority of them were women and children. So basically this was the crisis, that they are facing various kind of violence, discrimination, persecution in Myanmar, and they are the ethnic minorities. This is one thing. Now, what is the reason for this crisis? So since this crisis there, what is the reason? The first one is this denial of citizenship. 1982, a Citizenship Act was passed in Myanmar, but the Rohingyas, they were denied citizenship. Okay, actually what the thing is that Myanmar, the people, they actually consider them to be just like they consider them to be we can say the term which we can use is they do not consider them to be the people who actually belong to Myanmar. Actually, the thing was they actually say this thing that before the partition, okay, they have migrated to. They consider Rohingyas as illegal migrants, basically. The people of the Myanmar as a whole, they consider Rohingyas as illegal migrants. So basically who have traveled to Myanmar before the partition actually took place. Okay, so who have traveled. Okay, so that's why they have denied citizenship to Rohingyas. The Rohingyas are seen as crowding out the another thing is, first one is they were denied citizenship, so that's why they are the largest stateless population in the world. Then the second thing is they are seen as crowding the Rakhine Buddhist. They are the majority people. Okay, ethnic majority में जो आ जाते हैं, so they are saying that they are crowding out them, be it in the case of economic opportunities or this kind of thing. There is this fear of demographic inversion. Rakhine state में जो Buddhist people हैं, वो basically they fear that it might be possible कि जो demography है उस region की बदल दें वो लोग, कि the thing is they might change the demography of that particular region and वो बिल्कुल outgrow कर दें Rakhine Buddhist को. So they have this fear of demographic inversion. So because of this reason, this crisis is there. Rohingyas actually face this violence, persecution in Myanmar because of these reasons. So this persecution is there where the Rohingyas basically find the refuge. Definitely it's going to be in the neighboring countries. Okay, so Cox's Bazar is the region of Bangladesh where the largest refugee which is the largest refugee settlement in the world. Majority of Rohingya refugees reside across 33 camps in the Cox's Bazar, forming the largest refugee settlement globally. The overcrowded and the conditions, definitely they're overcrowded and the conditions are really poor. Like they are incredibly challenging for women and children who face high risk of violence, exploitation and human trafficking. Let me tell you like where this region is there. See, this is the Rakhine state. This region which is directly connected to Rakhine state and the region where Bangladesh connects Myanmar. Here, this red region is the Cox's Bazar region. Okay, so this is where the camps are there. Okay, so this is the reason. Now, how this crisis is impacting India, Rohingyas in India. So this is the another heading. So Rohingya crisis is there. Rohingyas, they have regional implication with refugee crisis. So that's, so because of the crisis which is there, because of the violence, persecution which they face, they definitely take shelter in the neighboring countries. They with refuse seeking asylum in neighboring countries, be it India, Malaysia, Thailand, Bangladesh. So these are the countries where they face it. As per the data of Home Ministry, there are more than 14,000 United Nations HCR registered Rohingya refugees in India. But the government estimates, they actually say that there are approximately 40,000 Rohingya refugees in India. The distribution, they are clustered over Jammu, Hyderabad, Delhi. Besides, they're in the states of Haryana, UP, and Rajasthan as well. So this is actually the data related to the number of Rohingyas which are present in India. Now, let me tell you like what is this refugee policy of India. First one is the principle of non-refoulement. While India is the signatory to the United Nations, India is not a signatory. I'm sorry, I just speak. India is not a signatory to the United Nations Refugee Convention 1951. India has followed, but still India has followed the policy of non-refoulement. Refoulement is a term basically used. India is non-refoulement is basically India is not sending the people back to their state where India is basically not sending them back to the country where they faced kind of violence or something. Okay, whenever asylum seekers have knocked the doors, so this is basically a kind of policy which India follows, although it is not a signatory to United Nations Refugee Convention. This is an important point to note. Okay, so this kind of statement might be there in prelims, so do note it down. Then is the internal matter. India has not signed the 1967 protocol as well, which was basically related to refugees only, and has always maintained it is its internal matter. The convention requires the signatory nation to accord a minimum standard of hospitality and housing towards those who accept as refugees. But the porous nature of the borders which is there in the South Asia region, um, South Asia, continuous demographic changes, poverty, resource crunch, and internal political discontent has made it impossible for India to accede to the protocol. So basically, these are the reasons, be it poverty, be it demographic change, or be it the porous border. So these are various issues which are there in the South Asia region. So India cannot actually comply with the 1967 protocol. So that's why it is non-signatory to this protocol as well. So this is something I just wanted to tell you about it. India is not signatory to either 1967 protocol or to the United Nations Refugee Convention. India is not a signatory to both of them. Okay, so India is not bound by any international law in the case of refugees. This is something which is important to know before knowing the government of India's policy towards the Rohingyas. Now, switching on to government of India's policy towards the Rohingyas, India considers the development in Rakhine State to be the internal affair of Myanmar. India has considered it to be the internal affair. कि ये उनका internal affair है. India has followed a quiet diplomacy towards it. Okay, so basically considering it as to be their internal affair, ये उनका खुद का affair है. India has followed a quiet diplomacy towards the issue. The reason behind that is India took the side of Myanmar government because it was concerned कि अगर वो इस इशू में कुछ अगर हम इस इशू में कुछ बोलते हैं so definitely Myanmar is going to move more towards China's axis, so which is definitely going to impact India's interest. So basically this is the thing, because it was concerned that raising issue publicly might push Myanmar towards China, and which is definitely not in our interest. So that's why we have followed this quiet diplomacy towards this issue, has been actively pursuing their repatriation towards the state. So this is something which India is doing in case of the Rohingyas. Okay, presently what it is that after 2018 this is something which has happened कि India is actually signing memorandum of understanding on Rakhine State Development Program with Myanmar, which is aimed at socio-economic development and livelihood initiatives in Rakhine State. Basically, provision of like infrastructurally or development के लिए help कर रहे हैं so that the refugee crisis basically can be solved. So this is how India is helping. India pledged $25 million for the 5-year development project in the Rakhine State. Rakhine State is basically one of the, we can say, the least developed region in the Myanmar as a whole. So basically India is helping in the development of the region so that the crisis actually can be tackled with somehow. Okay, at the invitation of Myanmar government, India joined UNSC delegation that visited Myanmar along with 3 other neighbors, China, Laos and Thailand. Okay, so this is what India did in this case. Okay, so this is what India's government of India's policy is. Yes, it maintains quiet diplomacy. It is sending the people like the repatriation is taking place, that India has deported since late 2018. India has deported a numerous refugees back to Myanmar, but it is also following this kind of developmental thing. It is also helping in the development of the Rakhine State region. Okay, so this is thing. Another thing is India does consider them as illegal migrants, Rohingyas as illegal migrants. Okay, so this is there. But we are also helping in the development of the region so that the crisis can actually be solved. So though what can be the conclusion in this state? We have talked about the crisis. We have talked about who Rohingyas are. They are the ethnic minority who are there in Rakhine, who live in Rakhine state. They are basically Muslim people. They follow the Bengali dialect. They are the Rohingya people. There is this crisis against them. They face violence and persecution in Myanmar. What are the reasons behind that? What are the basic reasons that they are facing the kind of issue in Myanmar? Is there are various reasons of this thing, that they are denied citizenship, and the reason for denial of citizenship is because Myanmar consider them to be the illegal migrants, okay, who have settled in Myanmar before the actual partition could take place. Okay, so they consider them as illegal migrants, and definitely because of that reason they have denied the citizenship. This thing. Another thing is the fear of Rakhine Buddhist people there, which are there, beat of demographic inversion, and also that they are crowding out them by taking the economic opportunities which are there in the region. So because of these particular reasons, the Rohingyas are actually facing the conflict, because they are actually facing this persecution, and because of this safety issue which they are having in the region of Rakhine state, there is this refugee crisis. Rohingyas move from Rakhine state to the neighboring countries in order to seek asylum. Okay, in order to seek the asylum, we have talked about it. Majority of them are there in the Cox's Bazar region, and they are also moving to India. What is the policy of government, like what is India's policy towards the refugees, how it is dealing with the issue of Rohingyas in India, with balancing its own interest, with balancing the thing that China doesn't move Myanmar doesn't move more closer towards China. Okay, so this is another thing. What conclusion can be there in this case? So the conclusion can be that India has not signed the Refugee Convention or its 1967 protocol. India has not signed them. But India has a stellar record on refugee protection. India has hosted lakhs of refugees, including Sri Lankan Tamils, Afghans and Tibetans. So India should adopt similar humane approach with respect to Rohingyas as well, and because this is definitely going to earn a lot of goodwill and strengthen India's soft power. So this is how India should actually, this is something which we can write in the conclusion. So This is all about the Rohingya issue, about China in Myanmar. I have talked about few points which were important from the prelims perspective as well. We have discussed about the thing which was there in the there recently in the news, that is the free movement regime. Okay, so this basically covers the entire India Myanmar relations topic as well. So we are done with it. Now which neighbor left is China is left. Okay, so we'll be talking about it in the next class. We'll be starting with India China relationship in the next class. Okay, so that's all for today. In case of any doubt, do ask me in the comment section. Okay, so that's all for today. Thank you very much. Take care of yourself. Stay happy, stay healthy. Bye bye.